What's up, everybody? Thank you very much for coming back to the channel. If this is your first time, please do me a favor. If this video is of value to you, remember to hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and a comment down below on your thoughts or even your experiences on the quick tip and your techniques for achieving this technique. Anyhow, if you're new to the channel and you haven't been watching this series, I recorded these a year ago. And they are exclusively on my Patreon for an entire year. Now I'm releasing them week by week here on YouTube to the public. So in the early stages, this was a pretty raw and rough thing that I didn't realize what it was going to turn into. So they are kind of very, very laid back. There's no production value to them. So I hope that you can look past that, and in coming weeks, I promise they will get a little more pretty and detailed, if you will. But until then, this is very much a raw video. I'm going to give you my kind of technique for adding some flair with dry pigments. I know scale modelers, you probably already know this technique, so this video isn't necessarily going to be for you. Historical guys, same thing. But for us tabletop miniature people, this isn't something that I see used quite a bit. So I'm going to show you, aside from just the regular old let's dust on some dry pigments and make a miniature dusty, I'm going to give you a little bit of a new technique for you to try out on your miniatures. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you checking out the video.
Alright, quick tips number 8. Can you believe it? 2 months of quick tips, gang. So, a lot of you got pigments in your loot crates last month. I just want to kind of show you guys, I mean, like, we're all pretty familiar with the traditional sense of using dry pigments, you know, applying them on to create kind of a dusty effect, right? That's all well and good. And then you can kind of blend it away with the clean side of a brush. You can even use a stiff paintbrush if you want, that's fine. That's what I typically use, but I ran out of these things a long time ago. I just ordered a load off of Amazon for like $7 for like 300 of them. But we all know this can be done. So I want to kind of show you a different way to use pigments that a lot of modelers use, and this is great for doing mud. I did something like this on those armigers, if you remember, but I've got 2 different types of pigment. They're the same name, however, different colors. This one's more of a deep black brown, where this one's more of a red brown. But the main thing I want to pay attention to is the grading. We have 0, fine, or coarse. 0 is like talcum powder consistency, where coarse, even though they look very similar to the eye, coarse will have a little bit of texture. Now, I don't want you to think in like natural everyday coarse textures. I want you to take your brain down to the 28mm scale of the things that we are working on. When they say coarse, the grit in the coarse will be conducive to actual mud clumps and dirt in that scale, in that little 2-inch scale, right? We're not talking human-sized tanks like you go down a muddy dirt road one day and you got all kinds of giant chunks on it. So don't expect there to be a bunch of massive chunks in this, but it will have considerable texture compared to this. When worked in a traditional sense like this, blended on dry, you're not really going to see any difference whatsoever. But this way, the way that I'm about to show you guys, is very much so easy to see the difference, if you will. So let me grab a brush here. I like to use as crappy brush as possible. Don't be using your good sables. You know, like you could go to Michael's and get like a 50-piece of Artist Loft brushes. It's just a bunch of janky brushes. I've used tons of them over the years. It's like $7-8 for this pack, right? So I'm gonna grab 2 brushes just because I have 2 different colors and I want to keep this video kind of short. But grab the brushes, and then what I have here is some pigment fixer in 2 well palettes here and here. All this is Secret Weapon pigment fixer. Essentially it's white spirits You don't have to buy the pigment fixer if you don't want to. You can use any type of fast evaporating liquid. You can use alcohol, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's going to peel up your paint, your acrylic paint, unless you're sealing before you do it. You can also use, like I said, white spirits, lacquer thinners. Humbrol has enamel thinners. Yeah, anything that evaporates quickly, but you have to be wary of what's going to get eaten away. Apparently, I forgot to turn my compressor off. Oh, I got paint in the cup. Just be cognizant of what will remove paint from your miniature when you apply it, especially in this manner. The pigment fixer does not. That's why I like to use it. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a slurry, right? And I'm just going to put some pigments in there, and then I'm going to mix them up with a brush, and we're going to essentially make mud, right? Now, I like to keep it kind of wet because it helps disperse it a little better. Try not to get it too clumpy, but like thin cake batter is probably the best description I can give you guys. And we'll leave that sit for just a minute while I mix up the other one here. Just for the sake of time. That's the fine. So now we're going to go to the coarse, and you'll see a quick difference between the two. My wife's texting me. I'll put that in there, and then we'll mix this up. And I don't know if you can see it, but it definitely needs more. There's definitely some chunkierness to this. Chunkierness? Is that a word? It's a word, because I just said it. Anyway, let's mix this up. And when you'll really see the difference is when these dry. And these will dry relatively quick, but I can already tell you that this is considerably chunkier than... Now, here's the thing. If I want this to be chunkier, I'll add more pigment. I'm going to do two different things, okay? I'm going to do a little bit here, right? And I'm just going to kind of dab it on, right? And we'll leave that be and let it do its thing. But now, if I want this to be a chunkier mix, obviously I'm going to add more chunks, right? So add just a little bit more pigment without overwhelming it, because then you'll end up... It's like mixing oatmeal. I don't know about you guys. I eat a lot of oatmeal, and if you mix too much oatmeal, then you need to put more water because it's like a cement mix, right? And as you can see, it's like a cement mix right now. But you can use this. You can absolutely use this. It's a little harder to work with. That's probably too difficult. Let me go a little dripple of some pigment. There we go. Just grab one or two drops here. Now, a lot goes a long way, so just kind of give it a second. Make sure that you're working it in there. I'm going to do one more drop. Okay. And we'll let that do its thing. Work it in there. It is super thick. Good grief, Batman. Come over here and kind of try our best to work with what I got here. There we go. Normally when I'm doing this chunkier version, I mix a lot more. But it's getting stuck in the bristles. So, that's the chunkier version, right? I know it's a little difficult to see. Let's see if the camera will. The chunkier version. This is both the same pigment, coarse. Okay? Just one is made real thin, one is made chunkier. Okay? Now, you can do the same thing with the fine pigmented ones. I'll just leave that in there. But I wouldn't really recommend it. I like to work with the thin one really smooth. But for the sake of the demo, I will show you the difference here. Now this is the 0. And it's still going to have some texture, right? But it's going to be somewhat thin. Okay? I'll even put a little over here just so that we can compare and contrast. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more fixer here before I add more pigment. Just kind of prime things up a little. And we'll mix that in. A little bit more. That's perfect. That's more what I want, like brownie batter. I don't bake a ton. I usually avoid baking, although I am a pretty damn good baker. Yeah, my phone. This is the problem with filming during the day. My phone tends to blow up a lot during the day. Here we go. So here's the coarse version. It's not the coarse, but it's thick, right? Thick version of the mud, if you will. Now, you can already see that the liquid is evaporated from this side already, right? But I'm still gonna hit it with a blow dryer real quick just to show you guys the difference. Let me close up these pigments so that I don't blow them everywhere. I know this one's kind of a little bit longer, I apologize, but I'm starting to run out of quick tips, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm working all week trying to figure out what I'm going to do for quick tips, so I like to keep these within 5-10 minutes. And it looks like I'm already into 10 minutes here, so real quick. That goes dry. And when they dry, they'll get that dustier feel to them too. They won't be once the carrier, the pigment fixer is called the carrier. Once that's dry, these things will lighten up into their true colors a little bit too. And if you don't like them, if you want a little more depth to them, you can always dry brush them, or you can always wash them and then dry brush them, but be careful if you're washing them. This is technically dried fixed paint, right? So you can see the difference between the two here. This is the same coarseness pigment wise, but mixing it like a drier oatmeal. Let's see if I can get this to focus in better. I don't know if autofocus is on right now. Let me see. I really want you guys to be able to see this. But you can see on the left that it's still got a little bit of grit to it. If I were to dry brush this, it would almost look like sandpaper, but a very fine grit. Where this is nice and chunky, this is the like dry oatmeal mix that I made. Then this is the fine stuff, the zero. Just next to this, you can see how much finer it is than the coarse, and then here it is mixed up in a thicker, muddier kind of oatmeal mix. So there's a lot of ways you can work with pigments, but this is a great way to muddy up the bottoms of boots, trudging through muds, or vehicle tracks especially. You'll probably see me do this on my Death Guard rhinos, but you know, if you just want it to look dusty, keep sticking with the traditional means. But if you really want to cake on that mud, try messing around with some pigment fixers and see where you get with something like that. Alright gang, I hope you enjoyed that quick tip. That wasn't very quick, but hey, it's a tip nonetheless. So thank you very much for your continued patronage. I really do appreciate it, guys. Have yourselves a great week. We'll see you on stream.